Hi everybody, welcome back to another video, and today I want to do something a little different. I want to tell you a story. It is not a particularly dramatic story, it doesn't rise to some big incident or have some, surprise twist or anything. It's just a small, mundane story about a game that impacted me and my life for a particular reason. This is similar in a way to a video I did some time ago where I pulled games randomly out of the collection and I tried to justify why I owned them. And that was a lot of fun because I do really have intention with the things that I buy and own, even though there's a lot of it behind me. I buy things for a reason. In some cases, that reason is simply I like this game or I want to play this game soon. In some cases, it's a little more I think this might make a great stream game. I like to stream weirder things. But in some smaller instance, it is this game holds meaning to me in some way. It's special to me for some reason. And that's the case today. That's what the game we're going to talk about means. So, for this story, we have to go back to the mid 2000s, and it's when I got this handheld right here. This is the PSP. I don't know if you didn't live through that time period, if you're one of the younger folks watching this, or you just had different experiences, you might not fully understand what it was like to have a PSP back in the day. So this is in an era well before smartphones. Honestly, most people weren't even always having phones in general. And this is in an era when the iPod was not new technology, basically. This was a novel new idea. And because of that, there weren't a lot of good ways to bring around media and movies and music that you wanted to listen to. I mean, we were coming directly out of the era here where if you wanted to listen to music, your most portable and convenient way was to buy a Sony Walkman, where you'd be pressing the 30-second anti-skip button in hopes that a bump on the bus ride wouldn't jostle your Smash Mouth CD that you're listening to. And it was cumbersome. It didn't really fit in your pockets. Even though we had big pockets back in the day, it didn't really fit. It just wasn't convenient. So in comes the PSP, and this was the first time I experienced portable media. I could really take things on the go. And I took full advantage. I loaded my PSP up with songs and especially music videos, because you could transfer files right from a computer. I loaded it with music videos of the bands that I liked. And I remember I used to sit in my German class in my senior year, half paying attention, because this is a credit I didn't really need. This is German 1, so I didn't really anticipate learning too much. And I would, on the sly be low on my PSP listening to music videos of all the bands that I liked at the time. Or, I'd be bringing this to the cafeteria over lunch, and I'd be letting my friends listen to things and whatnot. So it was a great time to have a PSP. I was very excited about that system. And that summer, so this would have been the summer of 2006, I got the game that we're going to talk about today, which is Socom Fireteam Bravo. And why did I get this game? Well, I had a great friend back in this era. I mean, he's still a great friend. We're friends to this day. My friend, he and I would hang out often very late into the night. I was always kind of a night owl, and I very rarely wanted to go to bed early. I still kind of am like this, where if I am left to my own devices, no responsibilities, if I just have no job, if I didn't have a kid or something like that, I would naturally, my sleep would slowly move to going to bed at 5 in the morning, waking up at noon. That's kind of my natural circadian rhythm. And so I was kind of moving towards that in this summer period. And during the days, Andy and I used to hang out. Andy's my name of my friend. He and I used to hang out over at his house. But the problem was that he had very strict parents. So sometimes we'd go to my house, sometimes we'd go to his, but we didn't often go to his house, even though it was a nicer house. He lived in a good neighborhood. Bigger house, just more modern. They had nicer TVs and everything. His family was just doing a little bit better, I think. And we didn't go to his house very much because he had a very strict dad. It's just that type of guy. The type of guy who's one toe over the line and that's it, hitting you with a wall of discipline, dude that was not afraid to yell, to get in your face, very aggressive guy. He's just very intense, and somewhat maybe even angry. You know, it's hard to say. He certainly was stern. We'll say that. Very Red Foreman type if you watch that 70s show. And so we'd go to his house, but often he'd get upset about some little thing. You know, you didn't put this away, or, you know, you forgot to pick up your brother on time, or you were 20 minutes late to pick up your brother, whatever it might be. He usually had something that he didn't like, he wasn't liking. He was upset about it. And so often when that was the case, he would kick me out. He'd be like, get out of here. You know, you're not having friends over right now. Get out of here. And so it slowly, his house kind of became a place that we couldn't really go. Like, it was not a comfortable place for us to hang out because you're always on edge. You either are currently being punished or you're like about to be punished. And I was catching strays from this all the time. So he and I would hang out during this summer of 2006. And we'd be driving around, you know, maybe hanging out at my house for a while. Then we'd be driving around. We're both night owls, so we'd go get some fast food at 2 a.m, whatever it might be. Just doing things that, you know, 17, 18-year-old kids do. And inevitably, we would come to a point where we wanted to just like hang out for the rest of the evening. And what we would do in order to kind of get to hang out at his house, which is where we wanted to be, and avoid these rules, is he would go home, you know, he'd kind of act like, all right, I'm home for the night. And then he would, after his parents were asleep, go downstairs into his basement. And then he would let me know, he'd send me a text and he'd say, hey, coast is clear. Then I, you know, at midnight, probably wearing a black zip-up hoodie and skulking around, I would sneak around the side of his house. I'd like jimmy the lock on his fence that they had so that I could sneak into their backyard. And I'd come around the back and I'd give a little tap on the walkout basement window door, and he would let me into the basement. And then we could hang out from, you know, whatever, midnight until 3, 4 in the morning. And then I would sneak back out and go, and they would never know that I was even there. This is like the big hooligan energy we had at the time, you know, very, very big rascals. And so I remember multiple nights I would sneak down into his basement and we would, you know, watch shows. We'd watch like old game shows or like old like Nickelodeon games and sports, or we'll just throw whatever movie up we wanted to at the time. We'd be listening to music, and then more than anything, we'd be playing our PSPs. And the game that we would often play is Socom Fire Team Bravo. I never even played the original Socom games on the PS2. I have no real history with this franchise. I have friends that played them a lot, but I was never into them. But this PSP version I got into, and that's because you could play this game multiplayer online over Wi-Fi. And it even came bundled, I believe, with this little headset. It was like this little over earpiece with had little mouth speaker, and we'd be able to talk to and play against people online on the PSP multiplayer. And so we would sit down there just having an absolute blast playing this pretty average shooter for hours into the night. You know, it doesn't control very well. If you think about the PSP, right? This is a twin stick, or this is a third-person shooter, which means that you're controlling it with just this one little nubby joystick. So how are you possibly going to, like, you know, get clean headshots or efficient kills? You really couldn't. In fact, the way that the game worked is it had a lock-on system. You pressed, I believe, one of the shoulder buttons, and it would, like, target onto an enemy, and then you could move and shoot at them. So it was almost like the most extreme version of auto aim you've ever seen. Not a very technical game, but we would play this game for hours and hours. Hours would melt away. You know, we'd be laughing, we'd be joking, we'd be, you know, teasing people online, whatever it might be, having so much fun playing this random Socom game on PSP. And looking at the gameplay now, I don't know that I ever even played the single player. I have no interest in playing the single player, and it's not a particularly great game. Like, it was fine at the time. These days, I don't think there's really much reason for people to go back and play this. It's not going to impress. You might have a little fun, you know, a little bit of the novelty of experiencing a game like this on a handheld, but you're not going to this is not going to shake you to your core if you play it today. And I don't keep it in my collection for that reason. I don't hang on to it because it's a game I love. I hang on to it because to me it represents those times back then. And why do those times mean so much to me? It's for a subtle reason, but it's one that I think a lot of people can relate to. I think back to this time as sort of this empty space in my life. People will often experience this. It was this transition period from when I was kind of on life's tracks to when the doors were opening and I could go forge my own path. So this is right after I graduated high school. It's the summer after that. And I had already, kind of planned what college I was going to go to. He had planned what college he was going to go to. And we just had this space where it's like time didn't exist. We were just caught in suspension in our lives in that moment with no true responsibilities, right? Later in life, there so many things will get piled onto your plate. You'll have so many things that you need to think about, worry about, take care of, having kids, bills, owning a house, whatever it might be, getting a job, maintaining that job and that relationship, professional relationships, friendships, everything that an adult needs to do to keep their lives functioning and operating. This was kind of the last time that we could exist in this bubble before all those things, right? We knew our plan. We just had to wait for it to initiate, and we didn't have to worry too much about what was happening on the day-to-day. And, some people use that time to travel the world or, master some craft, whatever it might be. They'd be really efficient with using that time. But for us, we wanted to use that time just having fun, playing our PSPs, messing around in a little bit of multiplayer Socom, and just generally having a good time. So that is why I own this particular game. And will I ever play it again? Probably not. I mean, it sort of served its purpose to me, but I believe it was a channel here on YouTube that I very much love. His name is TV and Lust. Doesn't make videos anymore, but he's a phenomenal channel. He said something that is very true and resonant with me. He says that people love to impress their memories onto objects. And that is very much what we do. That's what a lot of us do as collectors or just game fans. We want to hold this thing. We want to be able to open it. We want to flip through the booklet. We want to have the item that we can look at and fondly remember those times. And for me, that's what this is. It's like a little bit of a totem of the very waning years of my childhood before my life kind of kicked off, before I started becoming the adult and the person that I am today. And for that, I'm very grateful to this game. So thank you for listening to that. And I think this is something that a lot of folks probably can relate to, right? And so I would love to know if there are things in your life, games or otherwise, that mean something to you in that way. It could be the same type of situation where you played it during some transitionary period of your life. Lord knows I have those games for many transitions in my life. Games accompany transitions well. I have games that I remember playing when I got laid off from my first big job. I have games that I remember playing that I associate with the birth of my son. All of these events are kind of tethered to the games and the comfort objects in my life that I was sort of using to help me process those transitions. So if you have anything like that, please share it with me. I would love to know. And otherwise, I just really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Thank you so much. And I will, of course, see you in the next one. Peace.